Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show, and I'm excited to have you here. And also, I would love for you to go ahead and subscribe to the show. Lots of you have already done this. It really makes a big difference for people discovering the show. Also want to let you know, you might already know this, but Keys to the Shop also offers consulting and coaching. You can always reach out, chris@keystotheshop.com. There's links in the show notes for anyone who wants to start talking about coaching or consulting for 2026, one-on-one, just focused, deep diving into what will make you more successful as a coffee shop owner, or if you're just getting into coffee for the first time, or opening your first coffee shop. There's a lot we can do to help. So reach out. And also key holder coaching groups. These are our mastermind groups, the cohorts of 6 to 7 coffee shop owners who have a good amount of experience between them that allows them to get together in these 2-hour meetings. And we dive into member issues, member topics that are brought on these hot seat times that we have. And collectively, we weigh in on these topics and help each other succeed. That's what it's all about. And it's the best kind of positive accountability, insights, inspiration. It's kind of like what we say on the show, but you get to really get to know other owners, and that camaraderie is really helpful as well. So if you're interested in key holder coaching groups, the links are in the show notes, and we're starting the spring 2026 group in April. The first week of April is our first kind of meet and greet meeting, and we go from there. We have a lot of fun. So maybe I'll see you there. Now, today we are sponsored by our friends at the Pacific Food Service Barista Series. The Barista Series is the line of plant-based performance beverages that is made by Pacific. It is created for baristas, tested by baristas, and trusted the world over by professionals because it stands up to the heat from steaming, creates great texture for latte art. It also keeps the balance of the beverage's taste focused on the coffee. So what you need to do is go to pacificfoodservice.com, and they will give you samples. Steam this, taste this. It is good. It is awesome. I think you're going to be impressed. Go ahead and get those samples going. If you're looking for the best plant-based beverages for your customers, I think you should be checking out the Barista Series from Pacific. Right now, we're going to go right into the topic. And the topic is about how to apply insights to your cafe. And the assumption I'm making is that you have gained some level of insight from any direction. It could be books, audiobooks or physical books, podcasts, trade shows, consulting, whatever it is, you may have possession of an insight that is like, oh, this has the potential to really address the issue that I have in my cafe. I have, something with scheduling or something with quality control and time management, etc. But how do you take it from just the insight and the idea to actually applying it in a way that doesn't frustrate the living daylights out of everybody, and yourself included? Where I do see that happening a lot in coffee shops, where you walk away with a bunch of ideas, but the tyranny of the average daily work, the norm, sort of overwhelms you as soon as you walk in. It's almost like when you wake up in the morning, you had like some vivid dream and it felt so real. And then you're like trying to remember what it was, and it completely just falls away. You get back from Coffee Fest, I talk to people in my consulting, and I'm sure that this is the case where in the meeting, we're going over the reports and there's, oh yeah, that's a really good point. We really need to make efforts in this area or that area, and here's some solutions. And, we do coaching afterwards because that makes a difference to keep that fresh, because there is that normal daily work that threatens to overwhelm and crowd out and get rid of that insight that you had. So here's where we need to, first of all, get some good mindset behind insights. Insights that you get to your business are going to have to be kept fresh in your mind, and you have to decide ahead of time that I am going to work on this in the business. And that requires you to do more than just be a passive receiver of information. The hearing of the insight and the click that happened in the brain is just the beginning. That's like the first 10%. The rest of that, the 90% of the effort left, is to actually take it and keep it alive. Kind of like, keeping a seedling alive. You really have to nurse it. It's like this precious thing, right? And that's 100% on you. You are the one who had this aha moment or whatever it was. Now you have to make time in your life to actually take that and steward that insight and bring it to bear in the business that you have now, which is actually, I like what my friend Scott Barlow over at Happen to Your Career says, which is you can happen to your career. You happened to it. In other words, you asserted yourself into that mix and you actually worked on your business the way that Michael Gerber talks about in the E-Myth book. And when you do that with an insight about some new standard for hiring or quality control, whatever that may be, you are the one as the owner who has the responsibility to use your position of authority and influence for the betterment of your business and the people in it. And stewarding insights and bringing them to bear in the business is part of that responsibility, which means you have to create room in your mind to maintain the clarity of that insight. If it made sense and it was just so clear that, yes, this is what we need, and then it starts to fade, fight against that. Fight, remind yourself. And then remember, don't doubt in the darkness what was revealed in the light. If you had the light shed on the situation and then you get back into the normal swing of things, you're going to have to take a leap of faith here and trust that version of yourself that had the clarity in that moment more than you trust the muddled, emotional, little drained, triggered version that you find when you're back in the cafe or you're back face to face with that issue once again. And you've got already a program running in the back of your mind that says, here's what I do with this. I put it off, or I vent about it, I commiserate about it, whatever it is you used to do, but it's not the thing that you now know you should do. Now you have to, again, have a little faith in what you originally knew and it was revealed to you from that workshop or that coaching call, right? And start to say, okay, we've done everything else, and obviously we still have the issue. Now we're going to apply this. And in order to do that, now moving on from the mindset, you need to actually read the room and be honest with yourself about the fact that this business right now this is the condition of it. This is the atmosphere. Maybe people are not trusting of new things. Maybe people are angsty a little bit. There's the condition of your cafe right now is the condition it's in because it's what we tolerated at the moment. It's not because of any other reason except this was presided over by us to this point. It's what I say when I go into a coffee shop. You go into a coffee shop, you experience some level of service there, good or bad, and you can say, hey, this is because of what's going on with leadership and management. They had allowed these things to happen. Not only do they allow the negatives, they also facilitate the positives, right? We're all a part of this. The baristas also influence what happens as well. I recognize it's oftentimes you could have, some barista that, or a group of baristas that kind of throw a wrench in the works. But I would say there are a lot of instances where, that culture doesn't need to be tolerated. If it's a toxic culture that's born from, the ranks of the baristas, or if it's a toxic culture that's born from leadership, and maybe it's a toxic culture that you've perpetuated and you tolerate that of yourself. Again, your approval of that behavior is the thing that makes it normative. And if you don't like what the norm is right now, then you need to assert yourself into the situation and say, I will put a stop to this. I'll put a stop to my own contribution, to their own contribution. And how we're going to do that is we've got to be honest. We got to start by owning it and saying, this is where it is right now because we have approved of it. And now we are going to, on purpose, change whatever that may be, right? So you got to read the room, you got to own it, but then you have to read the room and say, maybe there's an insight that you have. It's not something really heavy. Maybe it's just a little thing. It has to do with checklists, something like that. You still need to have deference for the barista, for the culture that exists right now, because the way you communicate ideas and opportunities for improvement deserve, if it's a good improvement, it deserves to be planned out well enough to survive entry into that atmosphere. You know, when meteorites hit the atmosphere and burn up on impact, and you see the shooting stars, so it's them burning up on impact, right? It's the resistance of the atmosphere. And so what we need to do is say, okay, I understand there's going to be some atmospheric drag. There's going to be some resistance to this. It's natural, even for the best of us, right? I mean, look at us right now, even resisting the idea of doing necessary positive changes because we anticipate the difficulty of change. We want the rewards of having it be a reality in the future, but we want to avoid the pain of making it a reality in the present. And that's diabolical. And we've all suffered from it, right? So you got to read the room and say, how do I properly communicate this necessary change to, in deference to this group of people who are currently operating under my leadership and an accepted standard of work that is defined, that defines who we are right now. And I think that's the first step. And then noting, okay, I think how we need to communicate this is going to be based on what I know about my team. In that communication, the sharing of that insight, that new program, that revamping, the version 2 or whatever it might be, is involvement. So step 2 is involve those who will be responsible for carrying out whatever this new thing is. This is a collaborative process. We can't just consider ourselves as the people who disseminate information from on high and then force people to try to carry it out in environments that have been ill considered by us. This is what happens with, you could consider larger companies where the corporate overlords don't really understand they don't have empathy for, true feeling for what it means to work in the environments in which they hope to create changes. You can't do that and expect the changes to be well received, celebrated, promoted, acquiesced to, all that stuff. You can't do that. You've got to be a people person. You've got to serve people. This is a people business. That's why we talk about being a people first operator, having people first systems. You got to know what it feels like to be that person before you start creating systems in which that person is supposed to live and work and breathe. This is just kind of effective business 101, in my opinion. It's why we have delegated authority and leadership. Oftentimes, if you're a larger company, I think you will inevitably start to get so in a rhythm that you start to assume there's no brakes on this thing. We don't slow down long enough to even see it. Is this working? What do you all think? How are we feeling right now? Let's just check in. I gave some feedback about a cafe once, this year, to a manager at a cafe, and I was working for the owners of the cafe, and we were going around talking about some stuff, and there were some really, really necessary things to improve. And we sat down and I said, hey, let's just be honest. This is pretty frustrating, right? Yeah, it is. I want to know that stuff. I know, I can sense it's kind of frustrating and I want the leadership to hear that frustration from people, because they might not otherwise, because people who are in leadership positions like management will often work to put on a brave face and will be held hostage by the sort of a hopelessness. They're not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to complain about it. We're just going to try to get through it. I'm going to make do with what I have. and try to be as resourceful as possible. Try to be inventive, and that's why baristas and middle management is so good at putting up with garbage all the time and not getting the resources they need to do their jobs properly. They become resourceful. We say it on the show all the time. People value resourcefulness in staff because they don't value resourcing their staff. And that's a huge issue. So when you think about insights that you get, and you know that it's going to be something you want to put in practice in the company, involve other people and make sure that the system is created and this thing is shared with people so that they can share with you some valuable information about why or why not, or have you considered, well, I have a question about, and these conversations, if we shy away from them, if we don't pursue them, they're not going to come to you naturally. People don't naturally take advantage of open door policies as much as we like. Well, they know they can talk to me about anything. I mean, look at if that's working for you, I don't know. I just have never really seen it work that well. The truth of the matter comes to bear when, I talk to baristas a lot that work in coffee shops one-on-one under conditions of anonymity, and they will share with me things that they've never shared with their manager. Okay. And it's revealing because, again, they're protective. They don't want to make their job harder for themselves because they want to protect the fragile emotional state of their manager or the boss. That's what they think of you a lot of times. You've got to earn the opposite reputation. You've got to pursue feedback and involvement and collaborative efforts. When you get this new thing that you want to do or this new direction, make it a group project. Yes, you are the one driving it. No, they may not have the authority to completely derail or say no to it. Okay, understood. However, it is good to involve them, one, because their insights may be super valuable for making it successful. Two, it's just respectful of the people that have already had to operate in the conditions they are in now. So, next level here would be to plan. You got to plan when this is going to happen. I would say any kind of change that's significant in your cafe, give yourself a month or two to just get this into the system, train people, give them time to change muscle memory, absorb it into the system. The way that we survive in hospitality is we have rhythms, we have systems we rely on because we can't be emotionally at 100% every day. We have to memorize, we have to absorb, and that kind of thing, right? So that same thing applies to your new project. You need to give it time. I hear people talk all the time about how, well, we sent out a memo that this is a new way we do it, and the next week people just weren't doing it. Well, duh, of course they're not going to do it, because we're just, for most people, they're just trying to get through the shift. They're just trying to get through the maze of different ideas and communication styles, and whatever book you're reading this week, they're trying to survive through the system, and now you're throwing a new thing in there and not giving them time to change, because maybe they only work 3 days a week, maybe they only work 2 days a week, and they don't have very much time to actually interact with that new habit, whatever it was. Right? So think about the reality and plan around the reality. How much hands-on time will your staff have to actually practice this new behavior, this new way of greeting guests, this new way of cleaning the bathroom, whatever it might be? Set your expectations in a reasonable manner for how long it's going to take for this thing to change, and make that the plan. You're going to have to take time also. Another step here is to take time for yourself and for others, like your managers, to actually manage people, coach them, and mentor them, give feedback, train. If you just take the schedule that exists now and say, okay, find room somewhere in what might already be a very packed schedule to do more stuff around this new project, the new project is not going to get done very well at all, if at all. And you're going to be frustrated. But what we didn't do was carve out time for that person to focus specifically on that thing with the people who also need time to focus on that thing. So make time for yourself, make time for your managers and other people to learn, to get trained on this new thing. And you're going to have to iterate. And the implementation of this is going to be like, okay, look, we're going to put this into the ecosystem now, this new insight that we have for our coffee shop, and we're going to have different versions of it. We're going to refine it as we go. It might not be successful right away because we are going to learn a few things. And when we learn those things, we're going to keep going because we know this is a good change. But our coffee shop is, any coffee shop is unique in many respects. And the application of some insight to your cafe is going to reveal some different contextualization need that only you and your team can see. I can't see it. Nobody else can see it, but you have to do it in order to reveal it. I liken this to the old shift break that we did a while ago where, I was taught by my father-in-law who refinishes antique furniture that when you sand a piece of wood, you're not actually done. You have to spray water on it a little bit, mist it, and then new fibers of wood raise up. And you're like, oh, now it's furry again. And you sand it again. You do that second sanding. But you'd only get that by applying the water. So the application of this insight after all of the sharing and planning and application, that application to your system, that is what makes that new insight, that new project you're doing, or the new way of doing things, it makes it so that you can see what it needs. And then you can refine it again. And then you've got something, right? You've got something that sticks. It's now smooth. It's now yours. And you just kind of follow up and attend to it as it goes. After a while, it'll just be the way that you work. One of the things I talked to a manager about who was apprehensive about new ways to make espresso and milk. They are 100% better than what they were doing. Okay. And this conversation was all about they're a busy cafe. The way they make milk and espresso right now, they can get through the line with their drive-through, with their in-store customers. They can get through the line. But when you look at each shot and the milk being made, it's not quality. It was like very inconsistent, very low quality. Temperatures all over the place, extraction times and dirty. It's just all a mess, right? But the anxiety is about the application of new standards in a busy environment. When I say make time and space for yourself, what I'm also saying is give people permission to do what this new thing is and develop give them assurance that even though maybe things will slow down a little bit, maybe things are going to slow down a little bit because everybody has to get to know this thing. If you say, no, you still have to make every drink in under this amount of time and you have to be just as fast and do this higher standard, you're being unrealistic and you're sawing off the branch you're sitting on. If you allow people to have a little bit of a lull while they work their way back up to efficiency with right practices, then you are considering others. You're considering their environment. You're being reasonable then. And if they had been trained from the beginning to do these things well, it wouldn't be a conversation. It's, well, this is the way we do it. So if we do it now this way, we could do it this new way. And 2 years later, we're not going to think about it anymore because we do sort of absorb this stuff and we embody it and it becomes second nature. But you have to walk through that change with people, and you've got to have enough conviction yourself to actually not give up halfway through. So you can't, again, don't doubt in the darkness what's revealed in the light. The clarity you got about this insight in this new way of making milk or espresso or workflow and service, whatever it might be, is likely going to be good. You just have to see it through, but work on it with other people being realistic about the environment that it's being introduced to, and see it through collectively, iterate as you go. And that's how you apply insights. That's if you listen to a podcast and you think about that from the perspective of even just your own personal practices, the same thing applies. Giving yourself grace, giving others grace, being consistent, having confidence, walking and applying it long-term consistently. I tell people all the time, like this, you hire somebody like a coach or a consultant. I mean, you can't really understand the value of something unless you consistently apply it. You can't. The conceptual idea of value is there, but the reality of the value is revealed in the doing. And so that's what I think we should be focused on. So if you listen to this show or you read a book, you go to a trade show and you walk back to your cafes, you fly back to your cafes and you say, okay, what are we going to do with this stuff? Follow through these things. We're going to have some other links in the show notes to talk about how to build systems in your shop. And there's some more framework ideas there. But to me, this feels like one of the most important things in coffee right now. For a lot of cafes, we just kind of set ourselves up in the beginning and it kind of settles into a rhythm of accepted mediocrity where we gaslight ourselves into thinking that what we're doing right now is a purposeful decision when it was just a compromise we made out of a desire to not have to deal with it. I think we start taking back control. We start really focusing on intentionality and cultivation. Cultivation happens on purpose. And when we do this across the people, the quality, the operations, the hospitality in our spaces, we end up with better coffee bars, and the insights make a difference. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you. And as always, go to the show notes, check out the links for the webinar, check out the links for key holder coaching groups. If you want coaching or consulting, reach out directly to me. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.